shout out to my people. Green, silver, black, and white, always repping for my Eagles. Hey, hey, welcome to the podcast, we gon' keep it real. Get it hype when the team stepping on the field. We all we got, we all we need. Philadelphia Eagles, lock in with me. It's a Philly thing, you ready? Let's go.
Well, now, welcome back. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a long time since I've been on the microphone. Life has been lifing, and a lot of things outside of the podcast, outside of work, has been kind of taking over. And unfortunately, I have not been able to be consistent on the microphone, and thus, it's June 29th, and it's been a month since I've recorded an episode. So, let me apologize to everybody out there who was a listener to the show. Forgive the hiatus. I had surgery done on my knee, so I've been prepping for that. A lot of stuff outside, like my grandfather's house caught on fire. I mean, just like a lot of moving parts. My sister got into an accident with her car. I didn't have a car for a while, so it was just a lot of little things that kind of piled up, and I just haven't been able to get on the microphone and do things, but. Post-op, I'm sitting on this chair. I got nothing better to do in terms of just like existing. So I said, you know what? Let me make this time productive. So we made some changes to the show. We added a new theme song by K-Boo. I will put that description of his artist name in the description of this video below. Also, the introduction video, we made a little bit of a change there, something to make it a little bit more vibrant, so to speak. So I appreciate Matic on Upwork who put in the time for that. But all in all, we are 6 feet above, and that's really all that matters, ladies and gentlemen. You know what also matters? This Philadelphia Eagles, and this training camp is coming around the corner. There's been a lot of stories over the past couple of weeks, over these past few weeks, that I have not had a chance to respond to. And primarily, one of them being the Jalen Carter story in regards to whether or not the contract negotiations are going smoothly, whether or not you should be, anticipating a trade for him, right? And every now and then I'm going to be adjusting my legs, so forgive the grimacing or the grunts that may come about as the show goes on. But also, recently on The Athletic, Chauncey Gardner Johnson had a quote in regards to the Philadelphia Eagles and Saquon Barkley. And really, I think while people were dragging Chauncey Gardner Johnson's name, I shouldn't say dragging his name, they were critical of those comments and critical of that quote. I think it does give you a little bit more of an insight as to what really was going on in the Philadelphia Eagles locker room and why the A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts story really came to fruition, started picking up steam a little bit more. Now, I understand there was the Hassan Reddick thing and the lady that they were hollering at and like all that jazz. That's one thing. And there's a little bit of an immaturity aspect that A.J. Brown was showing in regards to the Cooper DeJean chants and how he was jealous of those and how he wanted Jalen Hurts to stick up for A.J. Brown, even though, again, just like different weird stuff that it's not even football. But Chauncey Gardner Johnson, I think, is highlighting a bigger point in regards to the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's something that's worth diving into, okay? So before I do that, let me just introduce you once again to the show because it has been a very long time, ladies and gentlemen, because this right here is the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. I am your host, Asif Badi, and like you, I am a Birds fan who talks about the birds, only the birds, and nothing but the Philadelphia Eagles. So please do us a favor here, help us grow this channel organically by shooting this video a thumbs up, commenting your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribing to the channel. Also, check us out on audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star review because in the end, it doesn't cost you a damn thing to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We appreciate your support on the opposite side of the camera and on the opposite side of the airwaves. Okay, Chauncey Gardner Johnson's quote on The Athletic goes as follows, and let me pull up the quote right now. Saquon Barkley, I hope you're happy. You see that band's getting broken up. Again, there's obviously more to the podcast than just that quote, but that's the quote that people are highlighting and looking at and saying, Chauncey Gardner Johnson, You need to just keep Philly's name out your damn mouth. And to that, I would say, one, sure, you're right about that. Now, he was probably asked that question. I didn't watch the full podcast or full episode of The Athletic, so forgive me on that front. But more likely than not, he was asked a question in regards to that, and he provided an answer. I'm not going to criticize somebody for giving an answer when they're asked a question, okay? Because he was honest. And let me ask you this. The issues in regards to the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, outside the Hassan Reddick pick, because I think that plays a role too. But in terms of the fragmentation of the offense, when did it all start? When did it all become disjointed? And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing, by the way, because we got a Super Bowl out of it. Plus, the defense was excellent, but primarily Saquon Barkley's arrival to Philadelphia. That was the main catalyst for the change in philosophy. That and partly because Jalen Hurts was turning the ball over at such a high clip. But nonetheless, Chauncey Gardner Johnson's quote about Saquon Barkley arriving in the building, again, not to diminish what he did, because it's one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen, and it brought us ultimately a Lombardi trophy, kicking the Chiefs' teeth in. But Saquon Barkley's arrival changed the philosophy of the front office and the head coach, and ultimately, the quarterback sat there and said, I'm going to accept this because we're winning games, and at the end, winning is all that matters. And now if you're AJ and if you're other receivers on the roster, you're looking at this and you're saying to yourself, I'm not going to be upset with the dude balling out. However, being phased out of the offense is a whole nother animal. And that's essentially what happened with AJ Brown and this Philadelphia Eagles offense. In 22 and in 23, when AJ had career years, he was the main catalyst of the offense. He was the feature guy. He was the one that moved the needle for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then as time went on, especially in the 2023-24 season, the 24 season when we won the Super Bowl, those first 4 weeks, you looked at it and you said, hey, we tried to go through this high volume passing attack. But like every good coach and every good coordinator looks at their team and says, what's the best way to optimize my chances of winning football games? And it is something that Philadelphia Eagle fans have been calling upon for years. Running the damn ball, leaning on the offensive line, leaning on your best unit. And ultimately, in that bye week after the Tampa Bay loss, we looked at, I shouldn't say we as if I were in the coaching room, but Sirianni, Kellen Moore, other coaches in that room looked at the roster, looked at the players, and even the players, the offensive linemen famously walked into the offices of these coaching staff and said, hey, let us take it home. We need to run the damn ball more. Lean on us. We're the best unit in football. Let us prove it and let us show it. And guess what? For the better part of a half decade, they've been right. They've been the best unit in football. And like every single good coach, you lean on your best players to make plays. And in Philadelphia, the best players on the offense, outside of A.J. Brown, were the offensive linemen. Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson. That year, Mekhi Becton was sensational. Cam Jurgens was sensational. You lean on the Big Five. The Great Wall of Philly is what it was called. And because of that, yes, you won games. But AJ, with his immature tendencies, looked at it and said, you're phasing me out of the offense. I came here and I changed life in Philadelphia. Not only did you change my life, but I changed the life of Philadelphia Eagles football. and you're just going to cast me aside. That's his perspective. And Chauncey Gardner Johnson saying that, Saquon Barkley, I hope you're happy, while it was a little bit of a rudimentary quote and a little bit of a simplistic way to go about this, it does highlight the shift in philosophy and the shift from the front office and the coaching staff and the quarterback saying, hey, I'm leaning on this running game to win football games in Philadelphia. Damn stats. Damn how it looks. If we're winning, that's what matters. And to a wide receiver like A.J. Brown, who has the talent and the ability of a top 5 guy in this league, it ain't just about winning football games. To have a legacy, you need numbers. He did it in Tennessee where he only was cracking 1,000 yards with Derrick Henry. So we know he's not necessarily just about numbers. But being phased out of the offense entirely, it's a whole different animal. And that's what was happening in Philadelphia. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what caused the fragmentation of the offense even more. Not only the personal stuff outside of football, but that particular issue. And now he's going to a place in New England where he's the feature guy. He's the best player on the team. He's going to be featured in the offense because Josh McDaniels knows what he's doing. That's what Chauncey Gardner Johnson's quote meant. So, yeah, you can be critical of him, and a majority of the players from that 24 team are still on the roster. Yes, 100%. But don't dismiss the idea that Saquon Barkley inadvertently was the cause of the defragmentation of this offense. And I'm not trying to absolve Jalen Hurts either, by the way, because he hasn't been playing great either. But the shift in philosophy does lean towards, hey, Chauncey Gardner Johnson may not be totally wrong here. So before we start killing him in regards to how he's a journeyman, let's remember, not only was he an excellent player in Philadelphia, he's been an excellent player everywhere he's gone. Teams win when he's on that roster. So looking at that dynamic, I'm not going to poo-poo Chauncey Gardner Johnson's statement. Anyways, that's what I got to say about that. Let me transition to a little bit of the bigger topic here. Jalen Carter and his contract negotiation and what's going on in Philadelphia. Now, what makes this tough is he is 25. And without him, that 2024 season comes to an abrupt end against Matt Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams in Philadelphia. He made the play that basically sealed the game for us on defense. And his talent as a top 10 pick has been immense. Okay? So when we're looking at Jalen Carter, we understand the talent that he possesses as a defensive lineman, not only in the National Football League, but in Philadelphia Eagles history. It's as good as anybody else out there outside of like Reggie White, maybe Jerome Brown, right? But he's certainly up there. He's got that kind of ability. Now, in regards to the contract negotiations, the number that is being thrown out there that has now been resetting of the market is Jeffrey Simmons' number. The $35 million annually per year. The new 3-year deal, $105 to $106 million that was signed with $100 million in guarantees. That reset the market, and that's the snafu. That's what's going on. That's why Drew Rosenhaus and Jalen Carter are playing it the way they're playing it. It's why you're hearing other pages talk about a potential Jalen Carter trade. We're going to discuss that a little bit and whether there's an upside to it. But I guess my question here before we get into that is this. Let's just say you are in the camp of wanting to re-sign Jalen Carter. And again, I'm leaning more towards, yes, I'd rather re-sign Jalen Carter than not. But I'm not going to fault Philadelphia if they don't. Let me ask you this. Is Jalen Carter As talented and as young as he is he better? Is he a better football player as an interior defensive lineman right now than Chris Jones? Is he a better football player right now than Quinnen Williams, Dexter Lawrence, hell, Jeffrey Simmons? You could even argue Derek Brown if you want, but I call that a push. I think Jalen Carter's better. Or the gentleman in Baltimore, Nnamdi Mbakwe, I think is his name. Forgive me if I got that name wrong. But you know who I'm talking about. Again, another young, talented defensive interior lineman. Again, I think Jalen Carter is better than those two players, but nonetheless, is he worth more than those guys? And when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles and when it comes to building a roster, yes, you don't need to have choir boys all over the roster. I understand that. And I think more often than not, people get a little too cute with that in terms of having to have the best guy. Not everybody in the NFL locker room is going to be a good guy. That's just not how it goes, okay? Not everybody in your workplace is a good person, but they're there and they're productive. And they make the wheel, and they're a cog in the wheel that makes the system work. Jalen Carter is one of those guys. His talent is so immense. His ability is next level. When he toes the line, it's what makes him exceptional on the field. However, his problem is that he ventures over that line too much. And for being such a young player in the league, venturing over the line as many times as you have been venturing over that line, it becomes more problematic for a team to look at you and say, hey, I'm going to give you the biggest contract annually per year for a defensive lineman in the NFL. It's just impossible to suggest that and say, this is justified. This makes sense. He's going to mature up. That's not how that works. When you're a bad decision maker, you're a bad decision maker. And Jalen Carter, since he was been drafted, even coming into the draft, he had a little bit of a past that had some unfortunate consequences based on his actions. And since coming to the league, he's had those same issues. Just recently, last season, you saw the spitting in the face of Dak Prescott. And I don't care if Dak Prescott started it first. That's not the point. The point is, you spat in the face of the Dallas Cowboys starting quarterback on opening night, on banner night. You couldn't control yourself. We didn't even play a down yet on defense. And you couldn't control yourself. And then later in the year, yes, you got hurt, but then you decided not to play certain games because you didn't want to risk injury, which again, I understand. I won't fault him for it, but people are critical of that. You had other issues in the past where he's been towing the line in games where he kind of pushes players over the edge a little bit, plays along that line of being super aggressive and potentially dirty. Now, I don't think he's a bad dude. I don't. I think he's a young man that just plays aggressively and his aggressiveness gets the best of him. But you know what? You're a grown-ass man. You better figure it the hell out. That's your damn problem. And I'm tired. I am tired of saying, oh, how were you when you were 25 years old? Much more mature than that, to the point where I wasn't spitting in the face of somebody across from me. You don't play a game and toe the line of, listen, I'm in martial arts. You play in a contact sport here, okay? There's going to be times where you have to get to that level of aggression and into a little bit of a dark place in order to push yourself over the edge. Yes, that's the competitiveness in you. But I'll be damned if I'm at the point where I'm trying to take some guy's leg out because I think he's not being nice to me. and I maim him and I hurt the man because I'm a dirty player or a dirty dude or being on the verge of that. There's no way in hell somebody at that level does that. The problem is NFL players do it all the time. You don't see in UFC guys being dirty, and they're playing a vicious sport, but they're never going out there trying to maim and kill somebody or take somebody out and ruin their career or do dirty tactics like poking them in the eye or like doing like dirty stuff like that. Not that Jalen Carter's done anything to that level. I'm just giving an illustration here, an analogy, so to speak. So when people are telling me, hey, I don't want to pay Jalen Carter $35 million annually per year because he's got a little bit of a checkered past and he doesn't know how to control himself, they're justified in saying that. And quite frankly, if that's the justification that gets thrown out in Philadelphia, I understand it. You wouldn't do that with an employee of your own. Why should the Eagles do that with Jalen Carter, despite how talented he is? Which now brings to the point of, is he better than Jeffrey Simmons? He's not. Anybody who does want to justify, hey, he's as good as any other defensive tackle in the league. Let's pull up the numbers for Jeffrey Simmons and Jalen Carter. And let me tell you, Jeffrey Simmons is just a better ball player. He just is. They virtually played the same amount of games. He has more tackles for loss, 38 to 25. Jeffrey Simmons has more sacks, 21.5 versus 13.5 for Jalen Carter. And again, that's due to scheme primarily. I understand that. But Jalen Carter is not necessarily a pass rushing defensive tackle. Jeffrey Simmons gets home. Quarterback hits, virtually the same, 41 to 37 in Jeffrey Simmons' favor. No knock there. So Jalen Carter, in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback, he does his job. And then same with Jeffrey Simmons here. He gets pressures on the quarterback 156 times versus 143 times for Jalen Carter. And this is over the past 3 seasons. So in that sense, all those metrics you look at and you could say to yourself, he ain't better than Jeffrey Simmons. I know for damn sure he's not better than Chris Jones. And I know for damn sure he's not better than Quinnen Williams. Is he better than Dexter Lawrence? I don't think so. Can you justify giving him $35 million per year? And I understand when your time is up in free agency, that's just how it goes. But listen, just because that's your time doesn't mean you have to pay it. And if Philadelphia's sitting there and they're looking at the situation and they're saying, you know, we got Cooper DeJean coming up, we got Quinyon Mitchell coming up down the line here. You know, maybe we give Tariq Woolen another contract depending on how he plays this year. Do we really want to pay these guys? We have Jalen Hurts potentially down the line. If he shows that he plays well this year, how are we going to pay him? These are questions that have to be asked in Philadelphia, and it's why this year, in my contention, is a rebuild year. It's why I don't believe we are in Super Bowl contention this year. It's why I believe that this whole season is an evaluation process for the guys on the roster. It's also partly the reason why you're hearing talk about Jalen Carter being in a potential trade. And guess what? If it means you're getting a couple of first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a fourth-round pick potentially for Jalen Carter's services, I'm not going to fault Philadelphia for taking that, especially with the track record of Howie Roseman over these past few years drafting. It is tough to sit here and suggest he's worth $35 million plus all the antics. And especially when you have Jordan Davis, who outplayed him last year. You have Moro Ojomo, who played really, really well. And if you believe in Clint Hurt, which I do, then anybody you bring into the building is going to get better with his tutelage. And with Vic Fangio's scheme, you're going to be a better player. So again, this is not to say I believe we should trade Jalen Carter. I believe his talent is worth it. Is it worth $35 million? I don't know. And if that's the breaking point, you see what you get for him. And if it means a couple of first rounders and maybe another couple of mid-round picks, I'm pulling the trigger. And I know they've been trying to trade him for some time now. They've tried to trade him for Micah Parsons. They tried to trade him for Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett's package with the Rams versus the Browns, it was just a better package. We couldn't offer that. We couldn't offer an edge guy who was as young as Jared Verse and as elite as Jared Verse. So, again, when it comes to Jalen Carter in this conversation, I believe he should stay in Philadelphia. I just don't believe he should stay here for $35 million. He's not better than Jeffrey Simmons. He's not better than Dexter Lawrence. He's not better than Chris Jones. He's not better than Quinnen Williams. So I don't believe he should be paid like those guys. Well, those are my thoughts in regards to the Jalen Carter situation. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And again, let me just finish the show by apologizing once again to all of the viewers out there for having such a hiatus. I thank you for your patience. And hopefully now we'll have a little bit more of a consistent basis here, posting shows and getting more content in regards to the Philadelphia Eagles. So, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you back here next time at the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. Hey, thank you so much for getting through this episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. If you want more content just like this, hit the subscribe button below to lock in with me. Thank you so much for your support on the opposite side of the camera, and check us out on other platforms in the description box below. And we'll see you back here next time for the next episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast.